Good evening, everybody. The first thing we do, much like you all do in school, we're going to ask you to stand if you're able and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for
which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Our first item of business is recognition, so I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Hello, good evening. Welcome, members of the school committee, and welcome to all of our friends in the audience. Tonight, we have several friends here from our Memorial Early Childhood Center. So I'd like to, at this time, call up Principal Jeremy Gobiel, your teachers and staff that you've brought with you, and all of your MEC friends. So tonight, Principal Gobiel will be talking about a recent event at the MEC in December that was called Holidays Around the World.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for having us this evening. Very happy to, I'm going to keep it short because these guys, why you are here. We had a wonderful event at our school where we recognized, celebrated the holidays around the world, and I'm going to turn it over to our teachers here who can kind of explain a little bit more about what exactly it entailed. It was fantastic. It was our kindergarten, all of our kindergartners participated in it, and it was fun, and it was educational, and we had a great time, and you're going to see why.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carly Paling. I'm one of the kindergarten teachers at MEC. This is Courtney Setcher, another kindergarten teacher at MEC. That's all she's willing to say tonight. Thank you, first off, Superintendent Lyons, Chris Benson, and the rest of school committee for inviting us to share here tonight. I will keep it short because the real stars of the show are standing directly behind me. As Mr. Gobiel said, this event was all in part of our social studies curriculum. It's something that we've done every single year. All kindergarten classrooms do some type of holidays around the world. We look into different traditions and cultures. But this year, given the vast diversity in our school district and in our school in general, we really felt that it was important to give all kindergarten kids the same experience and really just engulf them in different celebrations, different traditions, different holidays around the world. It really helped teach these kids about tolerance, about diversity, about building community. So that's just what we did. We dove in, and in an effort to compare and contrast different traditions, holidays, celebrations around the world, all kindergarten students created a passport, and they traveled from classroom to classroom, some with their arms out flying like airplanes, and really got to just dive in and learn about different places on our earth and how they celebrate different holidays. This is a big event, and while the planning and preparation was a lot going into it, we really feel strongly at MEC that these are important events, they're impactful, and they're the parts of school that kids are going to remember. And I really hope that you see that when they get to talk to you in just a minute. To make this event possible, we were so lucky at MEC to have so much support from the community. All K teachers were on board, special educators participated, ESPs moved from room to room with the classes, specialists rearranged schedules and prep times and were on board. We had support from parents, families, PTA. Miss Amanda at the Middleborough Public Library lent us books so that we had every country represented. We had support from Middleborough High School interns who rearranged schedules to be present. We had some Nichols Middle School elves stationed at the North Pole, so that was really fun. But really the root of all of this and why this event was so successful is the support that we received from our principal, Mr. Gobiel. any idea that we bring to Jeremy, he's on board. He's always willing to help, whether it's a big idea or a small idea. He rearranged lunch schedules and prep times and really kind of just rearranged our whole school day to make sure that all kindergarten kids got to experience this. We're so fortunate to have Jeremy at MEC, and we just wanted to make sure we thank Mr. Gobeil. So I could stand here and tell you all about the event, but who better to hear it from than the world travelers themselves who got to go about the earth. So they are here to share their travel itinerary with you. Enjoy.
My name is Christian De Silva. I'm 5 years old. We traveled around the earth. We got to make luggage to carry all our stuff. We made a USA passport. We went to Mexico to celebrate Los Posados. And we built a piñata. Feliz Navidad. We went to China to celebrate Chinese New Year. We made a lantern and a handprint dragon. Come check it out.
My name is Henry Healy, and I am 5 years old. We went to Israel to celebrate Hanukkah, and we played dreidel. If you get Gimel, you give me all the money. And we went to Holland with Santa Claus delivered presents in a special type of shoes named clogs. When you go home, check every pair of shoes you have to see what's inside.
Good job, Henry.
My name is Juliana, and I'm 5 years old, and my last name is Houghton. And we went to Sweden, and we made St. Lucia crowns. Do you like my hat? And we made a dollar horse. And then we went to Italy, and there's a witch named La Befana who brings presents.
Good job, Juliana.
My name's Lincoln Benson. I'm 5 years old. I'm gonna tell you the United States of America. We celebrate Christmas. Santa Claus comes. We made the door hanger so Santa Claus can stop by. That's not it. We celebrate Kwanzaa. We made the Konawa. Let me tell you the colors. Just wait for 1 second. Red, green, black. Hello, my name is Timothy Busa, and I am 6 years old. We went to India and celebrate Diwali. We made a Daya pot and go to Lebanon. 2 friends that celebrated Ramadan in our class, and we made a lantern and a moon.
Thank you again for inviting us, for having us. We look forward to more school-wide events like this in the future. Thanks. Go ahead, take a bow.
Great job, everybody. We'll take a 2-minute recess. That way, if people need to leave, they can. So enjoy. We will reconvene the meeting. Next item up is public comment. Does anyone have anything they wish to talk about not on tonight's agenda? Seeing no one, I will move on to discussion items. Reports from school committee members. Jessica, right ahead.
I just want to take a quick moment. Mr. Gobiel, that was fantastic. I still remember when my daughter did Holidays Around the World at MEC. I'm so thrilled that the tradition continues and that they have a chance to participate in such a engaging activity. So thank you, and please express to the students that I think a couple of them heard me say that that was the best thing I've ever seen at a school committee meeting. So thank you.
Anybody else? Chris?
Just second that and keep it going. That's a fantastic way to begin to introduce the students to diversity and acceptance and just even world travel. So thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything else they wish to bring up? Then I will turn it over to our student rep, Colin. Colin, welcome.
Hey, you guys. Happy New Year to everybody here. Over at the MEC, the MEC finished the 2023 with a Spirit Week over before the winter break. And going into the year, the MEC looks forward to continuing the education development of the youngest students in the district. Over the HEB, they also, the whole district also had a themed winter themed Spirit Week before the winter break. But the HPB had a great response to our holiday themed shop for the students, which my mom actually personally worked up there. We were talking about it. This week also, after school, there'll be math tutoring for grades 2nd through 5th. If you want any more information on that, please call the front office or visit the school's website. The HB also has a school council meeting on Monday the 8th and a PTA meeting on Tuesday the 9th. The MKG students grades 2nd through 5th have begun the new year with mid-year assessments. On the other hand, first grade students will be using programs like STARS 360 and will be getting an early bird phonics screening to assess their learning. The MKG, like the HB, also has a PTA meeting on Tuesday the 9th. So Sorry about that. The middle school, before the winter break, had a BMX rider come to visit their school and give a presentation on anti-bullying. I personally remember in elementary school when we had a BMX rider come to our school and give us a presentation. It was great with all the tricks he did. The biker gave up students a powerful message against anti-bullying or against bullying. Gave students an exciting rally to end their year on a positive note. The MS is also starting in sports and in murals and clubs back up after the break. Rehearsals for the school musical, The Wizard of Oz, will be running next week from Monday to Wednesday. Like the elementary schools, the middle school also has a PTA meeting on Tuesday the 9th. The high school ended the year off great with gratitude and just with spirit. We ended with the Spirit Week also the week before winter break. And we also had a food drive and toy drive, which actually ended up great. I was walking outside of school and saw all the toys going in the truck, and the driver seemed very happy with all the toys. Also, high school winter sports did not take a break over the district's winter break, and many had began practicing. And there were even games, including a hockey game, where the hockey team took on Taunton and beat them on the 27th. Going into the new year, the high school and high school students continue to strive to be role models in our schools, communities, and beyond. Finally, before I finish, the district also has January the 15th off for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I would just like everybody to remember and commemorate the man that had such accomplishments for racial equality. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Any questions for Colin? Thank you very much, Colin. I appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Just so everyone knows, the MEA co-presidents couldn't make it tonight. They're switching to next meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Young. Tonight, I will begin with a financial update. I've asked Mr. Brian Hyde, who is here from TMS Solutions, to come and talk a little bit about the end-of-year report and the FY25 budget process. So welcome, Mr. Hyde, to the meeting.
Thank you. First of all, good evening, Chairman Young, members of the committee, certainly Superintendent Lyons. I'd like to start our meetings with a preamble, which we did last time we met on November 16th. And I personally believe in this. And working in this district for just a few months, 6 weeks, I've found that the business office and the budget managers, the principals and directors really fit this mold. So the Middleborough School Business Office is committed to supporting continuous improvement, transparent communication, and fiscal responsibility, leading to student achievement and student success. We are a unified team with the purpose of being a high-performing school district, and I hope that this meeting is one more step in that process. I don't know about you, but seeing those little guys and little girls and Colin speaking, this is a special place. And you should be very, very proud of the district that you're serving, the district you're in. I've been around the block. As I told you last time, I had 35 years of school committee meetings. 2024 brought my 36th year of school committee meetings. And this is a special place. It truly, really is. So 6 weeks ago, we came in and we started looking at documents and meeting staff and having a transition from a full-time business manager to a consulting firm like ours to come in and support you folks. And I was told when I first came that we have a super fantastic business office team. And I'll tell you what, they're doing the job. They really are. From Cheryl and Pam and Sylvie and Brianna and Erin, they keep the ship running. And it's not always popular being in the business office because there's a lot of no's, right? There's a lot of whys, how, you can't do that. You have to do it this way. And these are our educators, right? Our budget directors and our principals, they're teachers and leaders. Not all of them. They have different variable degrees of business expertise. But I'll tell you what, they're committed to what they're doing, serving children, and they're certainly committed in being fiscally responsible. And that's a pleasurable relief for us to come in and see a team like that in place. I work for you, the school committee. And I know that, and I work for the taxpayers of Middleborough, and I know that. Every time someone says, well, I have this much money in my account, I'm quick to remind them that they don't have any money in any accounts. It's the taxpayers of Middleborough that have money in the accounts. And it's under the jurisdiction of the school committee elected officials who has appointed the superintendent to manage those funds. But people think, oh, I have, and they're learning quickly that it's. And I was looking for the town hall the other day. I wasn't quite sure what building it was, and I pulled in the fire department. I met a gentleman who was a townie, a lifer. He was 125 years old, I think, but no, he wasn't that old. But he's been here his entire life, and we talked about the schools and the finances of the town. And you learn from people like that who are on fixed incomes, yet they want to do what's best for the interests of people like Colin and the people like these little children behind us today. But I'm really glad to work for such a caring, competent, and deeply committed superintendent. We work very closely together in this budget process to date. And I can tell you, honestly, looking at you, not a lot of superintendents are as deeply invested in every line item of the budget. And we'll get to 25 process in a few minutes, but it's pretty impressive what's going on in this district from all aspects, small schools, small leaders. So in the now, what we're doing right now, I told you we're in the now, and some people we're in the next, but in the now, end of the year 23 report has been successfully submitted. Trish Boyer, she recently got married, completed that. She took off where your former business manager had left off. End of the year reports take anywhere from a month to 6 weeks of focused work, and it's been submitted. It's been accepted by DESE, so 23 is in the rearview mirror. The auditors will come in and they'll probably make some adjustments here and there, but potentially have some findings. But at the end of the day, you don't have to worry about DESE holding any Chapter 70 funds or anything like that. It's all in the books, and it's been accepted by DESE. Facility projects, I don't know who hired Jim Hutchinson, but he's my guy. I tell him that every day. He's a rock solid facilities director. Not only is he a doer, like a hammer and nail guy, but he's also a extremely intelligent, articulate, someone who really takes great pride in the district and is extremely knowledgeable in procurement and vendors and all aspects of the facilities. So we're working on a few things together. When I say we're working on things together, I'm supporting him anywhere I can, which is really, he's taking the lead in a lot of these things, certainly the mech roof, the chiller and the Nichols, and looking at capital projects throughout the district. Also, ESSER 3 is closing out, as you know. We're making sure that, again, through the superintendent's leadership and staff in the business office, that no money's left on the table. You'll see that districts have a hard time not only spending, but managing this tremendous amount of support that the federal government has given the states, who has in turn given to local districts. But we're on top of ESSER 3 to make sure no money's left on the table. We're also looking at, and you may or may not know this, but there's about $800,000, almost $1 million in salaries in ESSER 3. All of those are wants, obviously, but some of those are must-haves. So a few of those positions, the superintendent is going to try to bake into the 24 budget, and you will eventually see that in the next few weeks. And we'll ask for your support to provide funding for positions that have come in over the past 4 years that have ultimately become a real need throughout the district, and not just in this district, but in every district. In the next, that was in the now. In the next, the FY25 budget process, and we provided a calendar with you back a month ago or so, 6 weeks ago, and to date we're right on track. We've met with all the budget managers. And you may have seen this budget workbook. It's like 400 pages of the 300-400 lines that you have in your budget. Every line has 6 or 8 or 10 or 20 pages behind it. And the superintendent, under her leadership, and with me and the budget managers, the principals and directors, we went through every single item on every single line of that entire budget. And I was pretty impressed at the knowledge of our superintendent, I'm very impressed with the knowledge of the superintendent, but the knowledge of the budget managers and the principals of attention to detail, that they understand what's in their operating budgets. Again, you don't see that a lot, because most principals And even myself, we came from the teaching side, right? We became teachers, became administrators, and we work our way up into finance and superintendencies. But not often do principals care deeply about their budgets. They care more deeply about students, right? But these people balance both sides. And during these budget meetings we've had, and there were countless hours of them, we went through every single line, and we opened up and went through what every item consists of. And they, they expressed their needs, and the superintendent pushed back on a few items and on many items, and supported many other items. But at the end of the day, it's the building-based, Ed Reform of '93, of managing their own school operating budgets in their own departments. Special ed staffing meetings, I'll tell you another one that I think her name is Jen Healy. Did I get that right? A+. Whoever hired that one, another candy cane in the stocking. Extremely well-versed in special education. And then we met, with our technology people, and Sean has been great, and the facilities, and the athletic department has again, how many ADs are really on top of their budgets? I tasked, I think his name is Ryan, your AD, with a substantial workload of preparing his FY25 budget in a different format than he was used to, and he literally had it back in 36 hours. It's really good stuff. So we're working diligently on the budget calendar. I know that we have a quick turnaround with our early town meeting in this town, right? It's April. Most town meetings are in late May or sometimes even June. But we're looking this year to really streamline the process, get rid of as much paper as possible, put everything online, put everything on the website, so not just you can see it, but every taxpayer in town can look at it. And the other departments can review our budgets. There's we talked about in our preamble about transparency, right? There's nothing, the doors are always open, the computers are always on. There's no secrets in the school department. We're a publicly funded entity. But we'd like to get as much information online as possible when that's ready, streamline the process, and push out as much information as soon as possible, as much information as possible, as soon as possible, so everyone can get a good grasp of where we are. Because, staff has got COLAs plus, right? Steps and lanes, cost of living, utilities, transportation. You go shopping, you know what it's like. Everything's more expensive than it was a year ago. And the ask is to support the students of the Middleborough Public Schools. And on that note, we had a fantastic, in my opinion, meeting with the town manager and the new town accountant, led by the superintendent. I think it's Jay McGrail, I think is his name, and Sue Nickerson is the new accountant. Fabulous. I mean, it's funny that Jay and I have a relationship that we didn't really know we had one. Our children know each other. And I just met him right before Christmas. And I said, oh, you work at Middleborough? I work at Middleborough, and blah, blah, blah. But this Sue Nickerson is a town accountant who has tremendous amount of experience. And they want to move over to Munis, which is a really good, solid product that's going to help our municipal financial system. The system we have in place right now, I don't know what to tell you. It's you don't want it. I can't even export a budget to actual report in Excel. They have to print it and then recopy. It's archaic, and the town manager made that decision to invest, taxpayers' money into a new municipal financial system. It'll take about a year to implement, but when you do, it's going to be smooth sailing for the town of Middleborough. You guys are going in the right direction, honest to God. But anyway, so we're talking about Munis and that rollover, which is labor intensive, extremely anxious. It creates a lot of anxiety for people that use the financial system, which is pretty much every budget manager or the administrative assistant. And we're also trying to get 23 rolled over. They had some, and I'm not sure the background, but there was some turnover at town hall, and our 23 revolving accounts, your 23 revolving accounts, the taxpayers' 23 revolving accounts have not been rolled over yet. So Sue Nickerson jumped right on that as soon as she was aware. And I got like 2 emails from her just the past 24 hours about what we need to get that done. That's things like, facility rental, school choice, circuit breaker, funds that we depend on to reduce the general fund ask from from the town. So that was probably a lot in a very short time. But again, I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'd like to ask you right now if you have any questions or comments or concerns or ideas. Now's your time to hit me while I'm here.
So those budgetary binders, when are we going to receive those for subcommittee?
Never. I'm kidding. My goal is to PDF them, put them online. These binders, I don't know how useful they are. If you'd like a binder, we can make you one. But that's not only is it man hours and labor intensive, but it's costly. If you'd like one, we'd be happy to someone to put one together for you. But my goal is to PDF, put online.
Thank you.
Other
And
questions?
but I don't want to discourage you from asking. But this is probably $40. Do you get your return on investment on it? I don't know if you do or not. If you want one, we'll get you one.
Other questions? Brian, we look forward to the budget process with you.
Yeah, it's going. It's the
It'll be
towns.
an interesting one.
The towns and this is a tough year. I think it'll get better. But right now they have investments and the superintendent can tell you what the two things are. One was Munis and the other was $1 million on something.
Bristol Plymouth. The new
Bristol Plymouth, right, exactly.
building.
They're building a new school and we're paying for it. And every district's fighting the same battle with these vogue techs who have, what do you call those, American Express black cards to do whatever they want to do. And we get to pay the bill. But we're looking forward to it too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and with that, I'll turn to the next item in my report tonight, which is the Middleborough High School Program of Studies. And I will call Principal Paul Brannigan to the table to go over. I know that you received information about the Program of Studies in the Dropbox, but he'll be here to present out for the 24-25 school year and answer any questions you might have. Welcome, Mr. Brannigan.
Thank you, Mrs. Lyons. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited, as always, every year. It's one of my favorite times of the year to come to you to share with you the offerings that we're hoping to do for the high school in the upcoming year. This process begins really in the summertime as we begin to review kind of what we offer and really what we hope to offer and really looking at really what is the ultimate goal for our students as we really want to make sure that all of our students are future ready. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is just really the overview of really how we get to where we kind of what you see tonight. Also that it is still a work in progress, which is why with your approval, we'll be able to go back and do the final pieces of it. But then also just share with you just the overarching changes in the booklet of really courses that may be going away for a period of time, but courses that are coming back or new courses that are being designed, but also changes in the curriculum frameworks and really our response to that as well. So really, just as always, just a thank you to the department leaders, Mr. Sean Siciliano, Katie Godine, Terry Markolitis, and of course the counseling department for really their work of vetting this document and really making sure that it is ADA compliant and just all the pieces are in place. You're going to notice that in the program of studies, it has to show our accreditation statement that we're an accredited high school, but then also with that, our district strategy for continuous improvement, which is really our guiding principles of really ensuring the fact that all of our offerings align really with the charge of the district improvement plan, but also with our vision of the graduate, which we've launched this year. And then also our school-wide learning expectations. We as a faculty adopted these learning expectations to continue with our next round of accreditation that we thought these learning expectations, which you'll see in just a moment, are really, that we thought that they were really a very viable, still very viable goals for our school. You're going to notice really our charge is really this question. How does our academic program complement and enhance the new experiences within the new Middleborough High School? So as much as we've carried so much over from the old building, that ultimately it's really an opportunity and responsibility for us to make sure that we're constantly evolving our programs. You're going to notice the district improvement plan is embedded inside this document that really looks at the 4 overarching goals of the plan: personalized success for all students, engaging in a collaborative data-informed problem solving, creative, innovative, responsive, and safe learning environments for all, and of course, establishing meaningful family and community engagement. You may be thinking, well, how does this have to do with a new English course or a new math course? But ultimately, that the guiding principles of the district improvement plan has to make sure that all of our programs are in line with that. And of course, our vision of the graduate, which is something that we are beginning to launch this year, is this whole idea of painting your future. And really just our mission statement is there as well. So there'll be more to that. But ultimately, this is a work in progress as well over the upcoming year as we evolve with our accreditation process. The school-wide learning expectations, which are inside your document, but it's also, I know, on your screen now. And these are the 7 principles that really guide our work. So if you were to look at our curriculum, if you were to look at really the beginning stages of really how we design courses, that this is really becomes the principles that we want to make sure that all of our students are doing in the classrooms in terms of really being clearly, fluently, and confidently be able to present ideas, assess information, apply critical and analytical thinking skills, and so on. Community service, it is something that is continuing, and it was a commitment of our faculty to ensure that this would be an expectation of our students. It is a minimum of 24 hours of validated service during their 4 years at the high school, and it will continue with the class of 2028. Criteria for graduation, we're maintaining the 136 credits to graduate from Middleborough High School. That is the minimum requirement to receive a diploma. And you're going to notice the fact that it is still being maintained that our students have a 4-year requirement for math. Now, you may be thinking that's a contradiction because our graduation requirements show it's a 3-year requirement, which is the requirement. But for any student who has any inclination or thought about going on to a 4-year institution upon graduation, they must be enrolled in a 12th grade math. So what we do with all of our students is, because we don't want to ever assume that a student is not going to college, all of our seniors get enrolled in a 4th year of math. And then what we begin to do is when we start to realize and identify, or our seniors say, I'm not planning to do this, and they've made that commitment to that, then we many times will back them out of that math. Also keep in mind that in grade 12, we have students that are on what is called educational proficiency plans because of their MCAS scores. And for those students, they have to also be in a 12th grade math. So at the end of the day, most of our students are in a 12th grade math. We opted as a school not to require all students to do 4 years of math, because we wanted to make sure that students who were not intending to go to a 4-year school, that they had some flexibility in what their schedule could be. So that's why you'll see that contradiction a little bit. We say 4 years of math, but in actuality, our requirement has maintained itself for 3 years. And just note that the 4-year requirement comes directly from the Department of Higher Education. MCAS expectations, ultimately, that is a part of our document as well. As you know, at the high school, all of our MCAS testing in math, English, and in science are high stakes, and they have to be able to meet the state competencies in order to receive the diploma. And also just really that with this new Middleborough High School this year, it's a reflective document about the learning opportunities that are there. Many of the opportunities are the same, but we're really excited about some of the new things we're offering or hope to offer in the new year. Just the design of our booklet, it is an ADA compliant document. It will be something that will be user friendly on the website. There is a database that goes with it that allows students and families to navigate the different courses, which is still a work in progress. And the goal is that will then transfer itself into Aspen, so families can be able to look at courses in Aspen and see the description actually pop up as well. In English, there is nothing new. We did a major revamp a year ago. When I came before the committee, English had an awful lot of changes that we made. So this year, it is really just updating the course descriptions and modifications and scope and sequence within the curriculum. But there are 2 things that we are removing. They're 2 courses that we've never run. They were in the program of studies, but they're courses we never offered. It's an English Enrichment 1 and an English Enrichment 2. Really, the concept of these courses were designed well before the pandemic, and they were designed in a way that if a student in grade 9 failed English 1, that they would take this English enrichment class. It was really not something we found to really be suitable for students to do that as well within their schedule. So that's why you'll see that removed. The English requirement has not changed. It's just that one particular added course that we created is not continuing. In mathematics, We just have 2 items that we're kind of cleaning up a little bit. The history of mathematics has been an elective we tried to run. It is just not a popular course, and it has been decided to remove it from the program of studies. We tried, we tried, we really did. And then the numbers game as well, which is an elective that is maintaining itself, but we're not offering it next year to 9th grade. We found that with the 9th grade program is so rigid in terms of what a 9th grader needs to take, that we thought that this math course was really, or elective, excuse me, was really not applicable for them at that time. It's offered beginning in grade 10. So a year ago, I came before you that it was a 9 through 12 elective. We're eliminating it from the grade 9 pathways, and it will be starting for students in grade 10. History and social science, this is really where you're going to see the most significant move. The state of Massachusetts a few years ago had realigned the curriculum frameworks for history and social studies. And part of that was really the scope and sequence, grade by grade, of where certain time periods of history would be taught. The current, when we did the first framework attachment, was done in 2003. And at that point, we had to align ourselves with the middle school, which is where our current pathways were. In the middle school, in grade 8 was World History 1, in grade 9 was World History 2, and then your 2 years of U.S. history. Since the new curriculum frameworks has come in, that has shifted significantly. And now in grade 8, you have civics that is done in grade 8. So the world history program needs to change and moved now to grade 11. Because of where we are in our pathway of implementation of really the changes in the lower grades, we're now ready with the students that are coming up to make the change at the high school. So for next year, starting with the class of 2028, that all 9th graders and 10th graders will take U.S. History 1 at the college preparatory and the honors level. So for the current students here at the high school, that pathway doesn't change. So our current 9th graders are in world history. They'll do their 2 years of U.S. history. For our incoming 9th graders, they will do U.S. History 1 in grade 9, U.S. History 2 in grade 10, and then they will do a world history course in grade 11 to meet their 3-year requirement. It's important to note that in history, we have a 4th-year course, which is called U.S. Government and Politics. We use that as part of the graduation requirement as needed. So currently, if a 9th grader was to fail world history for the year, we don't ever have them repeat it. We just move them and have them take the 12th grade course as a senior to account for those 3 years of history. But all that will remain the same. But you're going to notice that for the next 2 years that there'll be no world history being offered because everyone here has had it. The incoming 9th grade and subsequent classes after that will have an 11th grade world history experience that we're really thinking is going to be much more of a modern world history rather than going all the way back to the Renaissance and things at that time. So just for you to know that. In science and engineering and technology, we're making some shifts here that our technology program is kind of evolving into really be much more called computer science. And that is now going to be more tethered to our math department than our science department, which is really where the frameworks really has it kind of aligned. For next year, we're removing anatomy and physiology, and I'll explain to you why in just a moment, because you're probably thinking, why would you get rid of such an important course? Because we have a complement of a course that almost has the same exact scope and sequence and curriculum, and that is our human body systems. So for next year, anatomy and physiology will be disappearing. All of our students who want to take the study of the human anatomy will be taking our human body systems course. It's the same exact course. Physics is being removed at the college preparatory level, and I'll explain to you how we're changing that. Because again, you're probably thinking, why would you be getting rid of physics? We're not. We're just realigning our structure. And I think this will be a really nice compliment for families and students, because this has been something our families and students have been asking for in the sciences. And ultimately, there's one elective that we're removing, our computer programming and design, which used to be a mandated course for all 9th graders. We're finding that the skills that our middle school students are coming up with in technology, this course has now become antiquated. So there's really no need to be teaching a course that students are coming in already advanced in their technology skills. Here's what we are adding. Our physics program will now include a full honors course, which we've not done before. And so this, in the upcoming year, our conceptual physics class will become the college preparatory physics. We'll have a true physics honors program, and then, of course, our advanced placement program. So now you'll have 3 levels for students to be taking, and they'll be able to select that in the immediate when they're choosing their courses for the upcoming year. in the current structure, we had a conceptual physics course as well as a physics CP, no honors, and they'd go right to AP. The reasoning for that is that the honors curriculum and the AP curriculum are almost identical. But we have students who may not want to take AP physics and that they were not given the opportunity to do it at the honors level. So we've switched that around. So now conceptual physics, as I said, will be our college preparatory level, honors physics, and then AP as well. And then the course that we're adding is our comparative zoology, which will be the replacement of the anatomy and physiology. We're finding that we have a significant number of students who are interested in the study of animals, and that when we did some polling of all of our students who are in anatomy and physiology this year, it was almost split right down the middle. Students who are anatomy and physiology, many of them wanted the study of the human anatomy, but we also had a huge group of kids who were like, I'd much rather have been studying the anatomy of animals. So now you'll have two different pathways for students to be able to go in that domain. They can take human body systems and study the human anatomy, or they can go more in the animal realm as well. Project Lead the Way, all of our courses are continuing. They're very, very popular with our students. I thought it was important to make sure that you as a committee and our school community knew that those programs were in play. The reason why the Human Body Systems course is in blue is because that is an entry point. So a student does not have to start Principles of Biomedical Science to jump into the pathway in grade 10. And the Human Body Systems is the course now that will be replacing the anatomy and physiology. And you can tell it's right in the pathways with the biomedical science degree or credentials. And then, of course, the engineering program as well, with the addition of which we have had approved before, is that aerospace engineering. And we're thinking with the cohort of 10th graders we have this year, that there may be the potential that that particular course will run in the upcoming year, we're hoping. And then, of course, our computer science pathway, which is the courses you see there. We added the Advanced Place in Computer Science A course, which has become very popular this year. We're anticipating with the pathway now of all of the students in computer science, that final course in grade 12 for computer science will be really quite popular as well. World languages, there's a lot of work. One thing that's important to note that I should have mentioned at the beginning, there were content areas because of the work of Dr. Michaelitis and the curriculum team, they're all beginning their renewal processes at different times. So English did their renewal process a year ago. Math is in the middle of it now. Science is beginning theirs next year. So you're going to find that over the next year to 2 to 3, my presentation to you will look very different depending upon the content area as they're beginning to go through their own curriculum renewals as well. But in world languages, it's a new course we're offering to grades 11 and 12, global communications, and that will be taught through the world language department. In fine arts, we're removing 3 electives. And the reason we're removing them is that we did a lot of review of the many, many courses that are offered in fine arts. There are a ton. And what we were finding is that we were double dipping all over the place. So what we did is through the leadership of Justin Pitsley and the art teachers, they went through all of their courses and identified, are we teaching things in areas that we're teaching it twice? And so areas like painting, they're getting it in other courses. The comic book art and calligraphy too, our students are never getting to calligraphy too. So we decided to say, where could we move elements of those electives into other courses that are much more popular and that are much more of an entry point for more kids to be a part of, which is why those particular courses are being removed from the program of studies. And just really lastly, just in theater, there's one course, and this is really where when we say removed, it doesn't mean it's not coming back again. That especially in the arts in particular, is that we want to make sure we can keep rotating the electives so that they become popular and that more and more students are taking them. So especially in theater, where Sam Mosier, the theater teacher, has done a significant amount of work of revitalizing the theater program, we want to make sure that those courses are constantly circulating so it's allowing the interest to maintain itself. In music, absolutely no changes for next year. Television production, no changes. We were anticipating changes, but Adam Pelletier had requested, because of the new schedule, he wanted to see how this really hands-on class was going to play itself out. I would say to you, a year from now, you'll start to see different entry points with TV production. Physical education, I'm really quite excited by the potential that we have. You're going to notice that you see the freshman experience, a grade 9 program. We have been really doing a lot of work up here of looking at really what are the needs of our 9th graders coming into high school. Study skills, organizational skills, and really just what does it mean to be in high school. and that we try to bring it in all different variables who start strong in other places, but we never really had this capacity where we had them all in one place at one time and they were all getting the same message and the same lessons. And so starting next year, this spring, excuse me, that we've taken the Fit for Life class, which is a mandated 9th grade PE class, and we're revamping it to make it now be called the Freshman Experience. It will still have elements of what the Fit for Life class is, but really we're going to make it really be a workshop-based model where all of our 9th graders will go through this protocol of really what is good study skills, what are good organizational skills, what does it mean to be a leader in all of those elements that would be tenets of really this freshman experience. And the 3 PE teachers are the ones designing the course with collaboration of myself, Mr. Sylvia, and then other stakeholders in the building that would be there as well. So more to come on that, but we're pretty excited by the potential that we can have a course that is taught to all 9th graders at the beginning of their high school year. And then lastly, which is something we brought up to you repeatedly, is just really a health program in grades 9 and or 10. And that, of course, is always pending budget approval. And then lastly, the last part is really our future ready innovation. We're at a place now where we want to make sure we have ready, and it's in the program of studies, our opportunity, if it was to present itself, to be able to offer courses in the innovation lab. We are currently not doing that. And so by having it added to the program of studies, it allows for us that if we are in the position to do it, we can begin to officially launch and populate the courses. So under the leadership of Tony Cupie, the coordinator of the MyLab, we have 2 courses that we're proposing. It's the Introduction to Innovation Manufacturing Design 1, and then of course it's complement of the design course number 2. It'd be open for all students grades 9 through 12. Everyone would obviously start in design number 1, and then in the spring semester for students who want to continue, it would be design number 2. And the idea is because we are an innovative pathways school, we have that designation from the state. These are the complementary courses that would allow our students to get their designation in the manufacturing pathway. So we're pretty excited by that. Also, early college is continuing with all of our pathways in business, early childhood, school to career, and also criminal justice. We're revamping a lot of our work with school to career, and we're really excited by the potential of this. We're hoping to really create a work-based model, and it's really out of really the success we're seeing in the YouthWorks program through the Futures Academy. And really what we're looking to do is for our rising seniors who have no intention of going on to a 4-year institution, and they know that they want to go into a trade, they want to set themselves up to be ready to go into the union or an apprenticeship of some kind, that we want to make sure that we can create a robust work study program or an experience for them out of the building in a real internship experience that would be on just 1 block or 2 blocks a day. That we're already beginning to work with our partners to see, is there a potential where a student can come into the building in the morning, do their courses, their English or their math or their PE course, and then leave for the rest of the day and be on a job site actually building hours for apprenticeships and credentials and licenses. And so that is something we're beginning the organizational pieces with our 11th graders, and to see where that may take us as well, which is pretty exciting if we were able to pull some of that off for some of our seniors. And then really what's next? This month, it's really about teacher recommendations. It's what is so nice is with this new schedule, our teachers have our students for the entire year. And so when we're doing recommendations at this time of the year, it is really a body of work that's continuing now for the rest of the school year with those teachers. In the past, we would do teachers' recommendation at the end of a semester with a group of students they no longer have, with now a new group of students they've had for about a week. And you're making these decisions that were really not on the spot. This now process is going to allow for the connection and relationship between the teacher and the student to continue. What we're going to do this year is that all the teacher recommendations for the courses and levels will be pre-populated into Aspen. So when our students go in to build their schedules and select their courses, their core courses will already be identified as a recommendation. A student and a family would have the right or the ability to say, you know what, I really would prefer a different level. And they would then go through the process of changing that. We're finding that we have many students who are making these leaps into academic levels that they may just not be ready for. And by at least having the narrative and the voice of the teacher to say, we really think this is where you should be, and then allowing conversations to be happening over the spring, that we'll be able to identify a really appropriate placement for the student, but also to empower the student to take those academic risks as well. well. Nichols Middle School will be down there for grade 8 days towards the end of the month. All of our school counselors, our department heads will be going down there to talk about the programs, but also to start building the connection between the middle school and the high school. January 29th through the 31st will be program and studies nights here at the high school. We offer multiple nights, so that way there it's an opportunity for any family to come based upon their schedule. And of course, we have a tentative date for an open house here at the high school for grade 8 families on January 24th. You see the program and studies nights. The goal is to open up the scheduling portals on February 5th, and that we'll be doing scheduling support throughout the month of February, and then of course throughout the spring, so that every student in grades 8 through 11 would have their schedules upon their leaving for the summer, as we've done in the past. And I can take any questions or comments or anything in regards to what I shared.
Questions for Paul? Jess?
A little bit on the thoughts about the potential new health class. Is that going to be worked into the freshman experience? Is it an additional requirement? How is that all
I
potentially?
think that's a great question, Jessica. So it is intended to be its own standalone class, and that currently what we were doing is we're taking elements of healthy living and we're embedding it into really that Fit for Life class, healthy relationships and all of those kinds of things. And really the health program or the health class would be a standalone course. The vision was originally was that it would be a grade 9 class, and that would become the grade 9 health class along with PE. However, with this freshman experience course, that is a class we already have and it's up and running. The idea would be is to actually potentially have health in grade 10. So it is something where it is ready. We have the foundational pieces in place. It would just be a matter of us being able to launch it and teach it. The problem for that is the fact truly is that the current staffing in the PE department, it would not be feasible for us to run a comprehensive health program as well as the physical education courses that are needed to do it as well. Additionally, you need to have the appropriate licensure for it as well. So there's some logistical pieces that are not allowing for us at the moment to be able to launch the program that we envision doing at some point in the future.
Would it count as that 2.5 credit requirement for the year for the PE for graduation?
It would. What we would do is that if that program was to run at some point, we would have to go back and re-look at the scope and sequence 9 through 12 of PE and health, because now we would have this additional course in play and then look at it, because remember, we have to show 4 years of physical education or health in a journey of a student in high school. So then it would become that course would now become one of the courses that would be in their pathway for their requirements for PE.
Okay. And then my other question is, obviously this was the first year of the new schedule, and you mentioned a couple things related to the schedule with TV Pro and the internships and trying to look at new opportunities. Is there any necessity to modify the schedule in order to accommodate this new program of studies?
Yeah, so that's it's interesting. We've been working on the schedule since September. And so when we launched the schedule, we were looking at the things that were working really, really well. And then we were looking at things that, in vision and in thought, it was really great. And in practice, it becomes really a little bit more challenging. So right now, we're ready to begin the process of sharing out what the very modest changes would look like in a schedule for next year. And what we've done is we've taken the areas this year that were a challenge. I'll give just an example. So our early college program really had some struggle that we were not anticipating, because remember, an early college program, it doesn't get built. That schedule is not on a high school schedule. You're on a college schedule. So it's either a Tuesday, Thursday class or a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. When you have a schedule like ours that rotates, that doesn't work very well. We had anticipated that scenario. So the way that our blocks were rotating, we had blocks that lock. And you'll notice in your children's schedule, you have certain courses that are always in the morning and courses that are always in the afternoon. That was really intentional. But what we found was that the rotation of the days was causing an issue. We've rectified that for this year. But now we were able to find a solution that was going to allow it to be much more organic and much more appropriate. Also working with Tammy Miller, our school to career coordinator, as well as the scheduling team, to really be looking at some of the things that worked really well with internships this year. Let's keep it, but also some of the areas that were a challenge and say, how do we fix it to make sure that our seniors have a much more robust experience? And that really work study piece, and I call it work study, but it's really about students having these real world experiences. And for students who have no thought at all about going on to a 4-year college post-graduation in June in their senior year, but we can get them credentialed and hours towards union or whatever it may be, then that really has to be our target with that population of our senior class. And I'm really excited to see where that takes. And we'd be able with the schedule to say senior English would always be in the morning, so that those seniors would be able to do their courses in the morning and then leave to do their internship for the rest of the day.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions from the committee? Chris?
Thanks for walking us through. I was thrilled to see the intro to innovation for manufacturing. I think it's great that more students will get exposure to the MyLab. If it was up to me, every student would spend some time in there. It's great. But my question, so for example, if we add something to the world language department, I presume a world language teacher would pick up that course. Do we have a plan on who's going to add these to their workload, the manufacturing? Is that going to fall on the coordinator, or where are we going to find the teacher for that?
Yeah. So in terms of any course that we run, so your question is really an important one, because when we go to build the schedule is driven by student interest. So it's their foot traffic that dictates where we're going. The core content areas, your English, junior math, that's a given. But your electives program, or any elective in any content area, is dictated by the enrollment of student interest. And so that course in world language, for example, will run that course, we'll offer it. But if the numbers don't warrant for it to run, but there's other electives within that department that had much more robust numbers, then we will not run that course. In terms of the manufacturing course, that is something that we're exploring now, of really, well, who would be the person teaching it? Would it be the coordinator? Would it be a member of the staff that could have the ability to do that as well? Because one of the things we're finding is that there are people who do have the ability to use some of the machinery and have a knowledge base of that. What we're doing is really making sure we have it in the program of studies, so that once we have our system in place, we're able to do it. Because we really can't run any courses that are not in the program of studies that you have not approved. So by adding it in, it allows for us, with the work we're currently doing now, to make sure that we can hit the switch to say we're going, we can do it. That way there we can offer it to students and they can sign up when the scheduling process begins.
Thank
We
you.
anticipate it will be incredibly popular.
I think so too. Thank you.
Other questions? Bridget, you had a question?
Yes, I had a question about the health program you're talking about. You mentioned comprehensive health program. Is that one of the DESE comprehensive health programs? Is that what you're trying to do, is to pull in their comprehensive health program?
No.
Or are you just adding a health class without opting into the DESE comprehensive health?
So let me
program?
clarify that. We don't have a program as of yet, because we don't have a program. What we would do is, like anything else, is we would take the frameworks and then we create our own. And that there would be tenets within the curriculum frameworks that then we would create, but then identify the areas that we felt would be part of the curriculum. We don't have anything even in place yet. There's nothing written, because we don't have the program as of yet.
Okay, but you're not necessarily taking on DESE's idea, DESE's framework, because they just revamped their whole comprehensive health program framework, and that's an opt-in for schools to do. So that's not what you're suggesting you're doing. You're suggesting adding a health class.
Right, and then our staff would then build the curriculum of what that would look like.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Paul, I just want to say, I think I've said this every time I've been here, and I really mean that the program of studies is really the life of the school, because it gives kids opportunities based on the knowledge of staff. And I am overly impressed each and every time about the range of programs that are here and the opportunities for kids. Even in your presentation, you didn't even touch upon that our students have the opportunity to take college courses at colleges, not just Massasoit, but usually the local colleges around. And for a lot of kids, especially in the AP realm, a lot of kids have picked up those college courses as their senior year math instead of, because as you know, a lot of kids want to get math over with and try to get it done within the 3 years. But there's that component that you have to take that piece to senior year in order to get into, especially four-year colleges in Massachusetts, it's the state colleges. So I really appreciate this, and I appreciate all the work that your staff does to put this together. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Principal Brannigan. With that, I will turn to the next item on my report, which is the Memorial Early Childhood Center gym roof update. And I can be brief on this item. I just wanted to give the committee an update. Before I give you that update, I do want to extend heartfelt thanks to Principal Jeremy Gobeil, the staff, the students, and most importantly, the families of the Memorial Early Childhood Center, who've all been so flexible to adjust some dismissal and arrival procedures to allow this work to happen really on the fly in the middle of the year. So I wanted to begin by recognizing everybody's flexibility and patience. The good news is that at our last school committee meeting, we obtained that emergency waiver in order to go out to bid. Director Jim Hutchinson, who, as you heard Brian Hyde talk about earlier this evening, I echo all of those concerns. The amount of work he's put in a very short period of time is extremely impressive. He has already, well, not only did we procure the bids, but we selected the lowest bidder of the 3 qualified bids that we received. And he's already had several meetings, not just with the roofing company, but also the insurance adjuster to make sure that the adjustment will account for, you know, whatever damage has been sustained. And he's, you know, we're even holding off until Monday to get, knowing that we're forecasting weather over the weekend. He doesn't want that adjuster in until next week, just to make sure they have the most up-to-date information. I'm happy to report that our provider, which is Gibson Roofing, has already ordered all of the supplies and anticipates receiving half of those supplies by tomorrow and the remaining supplies by Wednesday of next week, which means that construction will begin, in theory, by the end of next week. Considering that this was not, you know, on really a plan until that week before the holiday, that's a very, very fast turnaround. I'll have an update once work begins in terms of duration of the project. I don't want to, you know, speak one way or the other on that, but certainly the sooner we begin, the better. One, because of the weather pattern we're in, and two, because the sooner we start, the sooner we finish. So that is really the update. I did ask, and Director Hutchison and I talked about this for a little while, what happens if we have some type of major weather event during construction? Knowing that could go on. And he talked to the roofer about this and was, you know, assured that the way they will work in sections, particularly with an eye on the forecast, to make sure that if weather is anticipated, they would complete section at a time and then weatherproof what hasn't been done, so that, you know, to really mitigate any further damage while construction is going on, or make it weather tight. That's what he called it. It would be weather tight. So that's really my update on the MEC gym roof. And I didn't know if anyone had any questions before I proceed. Sure. It is a flat roof.
So are the mechanicals all up there?
Yes.
All right. Jim working as the project manager on this for us?
He is working as our project manager. He did assure me that, and he spoke with the roofer about this as well, that it is a very straightforward project. You know, not all roofing projects are different, but it is not going to be an overly complicated install. So that provides some comfort.
Easy.
Correct.
Are the kind of temporary emergency repairs that were put in place kind of holding for now so that there's no additional internal damage to the gym that we have to be concerned about?
Yes, for now, it is shored up as best as it can be. I was talking with Mr. Hutchison about the weather this coming weekend, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. He was saying, you know, depending on what kind of precipitation we get, he's more concerned about rain than he is about snow because of our ability to manage it. So again, I anticipate having an update early next week after this weather event. The forecast is still taking shape. I think it's anticipated Saturday into Sunday, but I'll know more by certainly Sunday evening.
Thinking just worst case scenario, if any damage to the gym inside occurs because of the damage to the roof, should that also be covered under the insurance?
Yes, so this is exactly why the insurance adjuster is not coming out until after that storm. Our thinking right now, the forecast doesn't look like there will be anything else next week. So we were waiting until this weather event occurs, because in the worst case scenario, something happens over the weekend, they will have their insurance adjuster out taking photos and on site to see that, to account for what the reimbursement would be.
Okay,
So it's
great.
important that it encompass all of that.
Question, just weather permitting, if the work does begin end of next week, when is the estimated date of completion?
Sure. So the initial estimate we were given was 30 days from the date that it starts. Having said that, given what the roofer has indicated in terms of how straightforward the job could be, it could be less than that, but we don't have any real guarantee. So I think the best way to think about this is truly 30 days from the start of construction. And then if we're done sooner, that would be certainly wonderful. And weather's also a big factor in that. You know, this time of year, that weather pattern can change and then we can enter a new pattern. We've both been kind of following. It doesn't look like this storm is tipping off now a new pattern, but that's as of today. And we all know that can change in 15 minutes. So, okay. So with that, I will turn to the last item in my report tonight, which is the district communications guide and some discussion regarding communications in general. I will invite Chief Technology Officer and Director of Communications, Sean Siciliano, to the table. He and I are going to be talking about this topic together. And I just want to make sure I pull up my slides. So we're both going to be talking about this tonight, but I thought I would begin by talking about, you know, really communication in general, what my priority has been as the superintendent, and then what I've learned in the last year. One of the first things I did was actually July of 2022 was I went and had training on crisis communications through John Guilfoyle, the PR firm that our town uses. And I went to that training very specifically to start cultivating how we would engage communication with students and families and the greater community. I liked the training so much, I ended up sending several members of the leadership team, including Mr. Siciliano, to the training. Because as trained educators, most people don't know how to engage communication in a way that gives people information they want and does it in a calm fashion. So I identified this right away as a need. And I talked about this last year during the entry plan. When I was collecting information, the parent community was loud and clear that they desired more communication, more regular communication, and I think more detailed communication. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But communication really has been a priority of this district. And you can see that in the really not just the varied ways that we're communicating, but the frequency in which we're communicating. One of the things that Mr. Siciliano and I have been talking about recently is adaptive communication. And that's that we've learned a lot in just a short period of time. You know, you anticipate what when you're creating communication, what you think families want to hear. And the truth is, what I've learned and what Mr. Siciliano has learned is communication can be a kind of ever thirsty well, where you think you've communicated and there is someone on the other end feeling like more communication was desired. That's what's led us to be what I am calling adaptive. One of the things you've seen us do is streamline our communication platforms. That's the use of ClassTag. And he's going to talk a little bit more about ClassTag. The reason ClassTag is really just a vehicle for pushing out email. But we were sensitive to the fact that if you had children at multiple buildings, you often had to navigate multiple platforms to get communication. We think that that's not desirable. Families told us that's not desirable, which is why we moved to a single stream sort of platform. One of the other things I noticed right away was the role Mr. Siciliano plays in communication in our district, which is one of the reasons he's now our CTO and Director of Communications. Many districts are hiring PR firms like John Guilfoyle. And that costs a lot of money, quite honestly, and a lot of time out of the day of an administrator. So having Mr. Siciliano with his background in media on our team is not just invaluable, but it's extremely cost effective and savvy. So he and I spend a lot of time together. When you're reading communications from our district, it's not one set of eyes ever that's on it. There's often multiple brains and multiple perspectives saying, okay, are we communicating enough? Are we respecting privacy and confidentiality? And are we communicating in a timely enough fashion? And that doesn't even begin to discuss on what topics. Because I've learned even in a very short period of time that there are pockets of families that want communication all of the time on world issues and local issues and countrywide issues. And then there are other families that don't want communication nearly that often, and certainly not from central office. So we've developed what I think is an adaptive model where we are constantly assessing, how did that go? Do we like how that communication turned out? What did we learn? What I can tell you is the communication guide that we drafted last year actually has been live. It's been in what we call a SMORE, which is just the company that provides a newsletter. We use that electronic platform for its accessibility purposes and its ability to be translated. Plus, it's instantaneous. I do know that there's some, through our previous provider, it used to be that newsletter was embedded into an email. So when you opened the email, it populated into it. You didn't have to click again. And that capability is coming to this platform. It's just every platform's a little different. So we do know that that's desired, one click instead of 2 clicks. But the mini guide that we developed last year was an attempt at communicating what the philosophy is for education, for communication here in our district. And what I can tell you is, why did it do that? What I can tell you is, we've learned even from that communication guide to the point where it's been revamped as of today. And after tonight's meeting, it'll be posted prominently on the webpage. And we'll also have a place in all of the 5 building principal newsletters, right next to that inclement weather. You've seen the inclement weather notification, so that families at any point can say, okay, I got a communication, I still have questions, what can I consult? So I'm not going to go through absolutely everything because I think it's good to read it, but to boil it down, it's helpful for our families and students to know when we're going to communicate. First and foremost, we will always communicate on student performance and progress. That's done with the parent directly. We're not broadcasting that, with the exception of, awards and honor rolls. We certainly do that, but the primary communication will be about your child. We will also communicate informational matters, right? Things that are going on in your building, things that are going on in the district, sporting event, you name it, arts events, anything, those are all informational. Anytime there is a safety concern, we will communicate it. And I'll get to the frequency and the when we communicate, but we are assessing when there's a real safety concern all the time and doing our very best to notify you at the time that not only we're aware, but we want you to be aware. That relates to matters that disrupt the student day. And you may have been a recipient of a message that you've received where something happened that impacted your student's day. We will always communicate when the student's day is impacted. That can be impacted because emergency personnel are at the school. That can be impacted because there was a very significant commotion where multiple students saw something. When the student's day is disrupted, you will be contacted, either electronically or over the telephone. It'll be a multitude of ways, kind of depends on what happens. We will also always communicate celebratory and school events. And that's because I think it's really important that we don't just crisis communicate with our public. There's a lot that happens more often than not. Nothing of safety note is happening. So it's important that you hear from us. Otherwise, every time we call, you're going to have that sort of muscle memory of something's wrong, and I don't want that either. School closing and delays, you will hear from us, and then finally, community events that impact our families. I'm constantly contacted from different organizations that say, can you promote the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts, or can you promote, this club or this children's choir? We will always push that information out because we feel that our community does best when they have all of the resources at their fingertips. In terms of the timing of communication, This is particularly important when we're communicating with our families in public. We'll tell you a little bit about what's going on. Most of our communication occurs after school hours. That could mean in an evening, a 4 o'clock, or even a weekend. I know Mr. Brannigan likes to send out his notices on Sundays. And if you have a high school student, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anything that's going out after school hours is informational, and it requires review. Please note that we're never going to send you fluff. We're not going to communicate for nothing. If we're sending you something, we want you to read it. But an after school hours communication is informational. Please do review it. It doesn't necessarily have to be reviewed in that moment. And you can expect that to occur weekly at least, because every principal sends a weekly newsletter. So at least once a week, you're going to hear from your child's school about goings on, what's coming up in the week. Sometimes you have a spirit week, something like that. If we are communicating during the school day, because there are times when we do communicate during the school day, now we're telling you this is important. This is important and requires immediate review because it's during the school day. That still doesn't mean that you need to panic or that you have to be fearful of what we're communicating. We're merely saying this is important enough to disrupt your day to tell you. So if you think of these 3 items, I think of it as a traffic light, with the top being the inverse, the top being green, the middle being yellow, and the bottom being red. Red is immediate communication. When I say immediate, I mean right now, within the 5 minutes of something happening. If we are communicating that fast, something critical has occurred and requires instant action, okay? So that is going to be, and has been, the least likely used form of communication. So if you want to think about, why am I hearing from my school? I think referring to this and thinking about the timing can already decrease a degree of anxiety about why is this call coming in, or why am I receiving this email? We do recognize, and I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways that Mr. Siciliano and I have realized, is that the amount of stress that is conferred by communication cannot be underscored enough. We fully recognize that parents are concerned for their students. We are parents also, so we understand that on a very personal level. We will do our very best to keep that temperature as low as possible. There are limitations on communication, and I think that this is the toughest thing sometimes to understand and accept. Because when something happens, it is natural to say, tell me all the details, I want to know everything, especially if it concerns my child. Please give me all the details. That's likely not going to happen, and it's likely not going to happen primarily for that first bullet there, privacy and confidentiality. Whatever has gone on will likely implicate someone's privacy and confidentiality. If you've ever had your child involved in something, in some dispute with another child, you've been told you will not be told what the disciplinary action taken with that other child is. The reason for that is confidentiality and privacy. Sometimes you won't be given information because there is an ongoing investigation. So if a principal or assistant principal needs to conduct that investigation, they can't very well give people all of the information up front because it would then impair the ability to do the investigation. The third item is what I'll call pertinent details, meaning what's the important information you need to know. And what we've learned is there is a delta sometimes between what we think is pertinent and what a parent thinks is pertinent. Okay, we recognize that, but it's not something that's overly negotiable. It just isn't. There are certain details. We will always tell you the things we think you need to know. And you may be left feeling like you weren't told enough. But the best I can do is tell you that there are reasons why every single detail is not shared. And that relates to the last bullet. That's because it is our job to protect all children. The ones that make a mistake, the ones that are not making a mistake in that particular moment, the ones that are having a bad day, the ones that are having a great day. Our job is to create a setting that is not errorless. We are a school district. We anticipate that children are going to make mistakes. It is our job to not criminalize them as it happens. Yes, we want to keep your building safe. We want to keep your children safe, but we all have to keep an open mind about what our role is as a school. We are not a police department and we are not a media service. Those are two very different things, and those all exist outside of our organization. So I think that is, something that is important to keep in mind. Next, I will talk a little bit about emergency situations. And before I even do that, I would be remiss if I didn't say the word emergency is defined differently depending on who you're talking to. And that is colored by one's experience and who's involved, quite honestly. The guide does go through this, and actually I want to quote from it because I thought it would be helpful to share how is it that we're going to define emergency. All right, if there is a potential safety concern for students or staff, we're going to call that an emergency. Inclement weather or something that's happening with the power, we're going to call that an emergency. A disruption of the school day that's going to interrupt lots of students, we're going to call that an emergency. If emergency personnel is coming to the school, you're going to be notified. We're going to call that an emergency. And that's not an exhaustive list because there's more, but often those are examples, those are live examples that we have used. I want to talk a little bit about the use of stay put. And I think, families receive that message. Our building was placed in a stay put. And I think that can be unnerving. So it is important that I explain to you what stay put is. Stay put is an emergency measure that we use. And yes, it can confer that something is happening at school. But it is not always indicative of a safety emergency for the entire building. In fact, much, much more often than not, it is used to eliminate students traveling around the building in the event that there's a medical issue. That medical issue can involve a student, that medical issue can involve an adult. There are over 500 employees in the Middleborough Public Schools, so it is statistically very likely that the adults sometimes need something also, not just the students. We issue that stay put call, that stay put status, just to hold traffic so that one, we're affording privacy for whatever's going on, and two, we don't have children walking through the hallways and seeing whatever's going on. So I think it's important that when you hear stay put, you don't immediately associate that with something's wrong. I need to go get my child. So I have to go do something right now. Just when you hear stay put, wait to hear more information. Oftentimes that email will indicate, we put the building in a stay put status today because a student needed medical attention. That's usually what you're going to hear. I wanted to talk a little bit about school resource officers in schools as well. We are very, very lucky to have 3 school resource officers, and they do cover all 5 buildings. But the truth is they don't stop being members of the police department when they come through our doors. They are still members of the police department. They never shed that. They keep their badge. They also have to do their job as police officers. And it's not unusual for the school resource officers to have to conduct investigations, talk to witnesses, and continue to do their job. Their clientele is the same as our clientele. Our children in the building are sometimes the subject of an investigation or a witness to something, such that the school resource officer needs to do their work there. That does not mean that the incident happened at school, that there is a safety concern, or that it's something that we can communicate about. And I think that distinction is important to draw, that there is a lot of police work that goes on every day that we may or may not be privy to. If we are privy to it, it's because something happened in the school. And as I've just said, if we are in the criteria where we need to communicate something to you, we will. But more often than not, the police are doing their job. If you find yourself in a position saying, okay, well, what was this thing? And I want to know more, you can always call the Middleborough Police Department. That is the best place to direct your question. Because the simple truth is, the police do their job independent from the Middleborough Public Schools. Yes, we have a memo of understanding, but that doesn't mean that I can ask about anything at any time for any reason, and vice versa, to understand that memo of understanding. So next, I want to talk just a little bit about the cautionary use of social media. Mr. Siciliano, I've talked about this at length as well. Social media is very instantaneous. It is easy. It's on your phones, and a lot of people use platforms that are popular so you can get information. It is important that our public understand that that is not our primary mode of communication and that parent groups are not endorsed by the district. So we are not going to run to social media to confer information. You are always better off consulting your inbox and your telephone messages before social media. Okay? I mean, social media has its place, so I don't want to create a sinister cloud around it. I just want to be very direct about its use, and I think the cautionary use is the best way to explain it. Which brings me to my last point, which is about the importance of accurate contact information. I know Mr. Siciliano and I both periodically hear, hey, I'm not getting my notifications, I'm not getting messages. The most important thing you can do is make sure that your school has your correct email address and your correct phone numbers. That is the information that we pull. It is pulled from Aspen. Nobody has separate lists. It's not housed in a different place. It's all exported from the same place. And your schools absolutely need to be in touch with you, not because of district communications, but for the general act of you have a child in one of our schools. So please do take the time to consult that, make sure that information is correct, and make any changes. You can call any one of our schools and that information can be changed pretty instantaneously. That also goes for contact 1 and 2. I talk to a lot of families that are blended families, and I often hear, hey, I'm a dad and we live in separate homes, but I'm not always getting that notification. This is exactly when you have to check to make sure, hey, did you get that message? Did you get that newsletter on Friday? The newsletter will be the first indication of whether or not you're getting district communications. So with that, I'll turn to Mr. Siciliano, who's going to talk a little bit about our new website and some more pieces of our communications mini guide.
Thank you, Superintendent Lyons. Thank you, Superintendent Lyons. Thank you, school committee. So just to tie up a couple other things too, we talked about times of communication and when we communicate and the importance of communicating as quick as we can once we have the information. There's a team behind me that we created last year called the communications team. It's a group of different administrators in the district and a couple other staff members. The goal of this team is to be able to take the information and immediately start crafting a message, maybe while the incident is still going on. Just the other day, we had a stay put at Nichols, and I got a message shared with me. I was on my email that Mrs. Tucker had shared a Google Doc with me, and it said NMS stay put, and it had the date. I immediately called her and I said, give me the information. What are we talking about? She told me what was going on. I started writing the basics of the message for her so that she could deal with the incident. She was in the building. Her her APs were also working there. But the media team is able to help kind of siphon that information and get it going and get it down. Then we turn that back to the principal and we say, okay, here's the basics of the message. Here's the meat. Now tailor it and make it work for you. So they're like Superintendent Lyons talked about, multiple people working on these messages. It's not just the big district messages that we have multiple eyes on. It's also the smaller building-based messages. So a couple things. We talked last year about this new website that we're going to launch. I'm happy to say that the new website is launched. Nick Krokta from the media team really worked on this a lot, along with myself. We're happy with where it looks. We're happy with how it looks and how it's acting. There's obviously we're never going to be happy with it. I'm going to tell you that right now. I looked at our old website and I was like, well, it's okay. And then I went to some other districts' websites and I'm like, well, ours is great. I still don't think ours is the #1 website in the country, and that's what we're shooting for. So we're constantly going to be evolving. We added some new things that I'm going to show you today. We have the district welcome. We created this information for families. This is an icon bar that we're gonna it's actually post, but you're gonna see it as an icon bar, where we're gonna put important information for the district. So if there's a school closing announcement, you're gonna see a pop-up when you go to the Middleborough Public Schools homepage. A box is gonna pop up and it's gonna say announcement, and you're gonna see the box with whatever the announcement is, and you have to physically close the announcement box before you can get to the website. Those are for things like school closures. Those are for things like big events that we're trying to promote, things like that. Just like everything else, we're trying to not overuse that. I don't want there to be a box every time you guys go on the website, because you know what's going to happen? You're just going to close out of the box. It happened the other day. I use a simple app, and every time there's always a yellow bar at the top, and I always close out of the yellow bar. Well, the other day I was like, well, why did this happen? And somebody was like, well, they've been telling you it's going to happen for a month on the yellow bar. Well, I don't read the yellow bar anymore. So those are the types of things that we're trying to make sure that if we're communicating with you and we're giving you something that's out of the ordinary, it's unique and it's important. So we're going to start with the MPS mini communications guide that we put together. This was put together last spring. Just a couple things that we wanted to kind of talk about that we thought was really important. The website is going to give you the important information, but it's also going to give you the ongoing work and the immediate things that are happening. So we're trying to get that through on the website, the news and events. We're working on creating more active events so that they're coming up faster. There's more of them so that families have a place to go where they can see these things. These are things you'll also see in the newsletters for each principal. I can't emphasize enough how important it is for families to read the newsletters. There's so many things in those newsletters that are so important. And we see it time and time again where people are like, oh, I didn't know this was going on. I didn't know this was happening. It's in the newsletters. And I know there's a lot of things going on. And I know that everyone's really busy in their days. But just taking that 3 minutes on Friday night, you're laying in bed, just scroll the newsletter and see if there's something that pertains to my 3rd grade student, or if there's something that the 5th grade or the middle school or high school. Just reading through those newsletters and really going and viewing those is super important. We're currently working on an archive newsletter page. So all of the newsletters that are sent out every week, you'll be able to go to one page, see all of the dates of the newsletters, and be able to click. That was something that was brought up in a meeting the other day, and I was like, that's an easy fix. Let's make it easier for people. And those are the types of things that we're trying to do with the website. I'm sorry. If anybody has recommendations or things that they're looking for, I'm still currently working on the staff directory. Building the new staff directory is not nearly as easy as I thought it was going to be. And I want to make sure it's right, and I want to make sure it looks good, and I want to make sure it works, and I want to make sure it's correct. And those are the 3 big things that I'm trying to really iron out before I launch the new staff directory. Family flyers is also something that we have. Superintendent Lyons talked about the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and the library and the lacrosse and things like that are the different sporting events that people want us to promote. Some of that does get promoted in Tuesday folders, but most of it gets promoted through the family flyers. So on the district website, under menu, it's going to make a liar of me. Here it is, students and families, family flyers. This is where you can find all the different flyers that we've been sent from different organizations and we've been asked to promote. A lot of the times that's where they live. And it's a great resource for people. The YMCA always posts stuff there. Youth sports post different things there. Sometimes it's a registration page. Sometimes it just says, hey, you know we have baseball in town? This is the website you go to register your kid for baseball or for softball. We're going to talk a little bit about ClassTag. ClassTag is obviously our main way of communicating with families. ClassTag allows us to push out text messages, mobile alerts, emails, and also phone calls. You can completely control in ClassTag how you receive notifications, which is a big thing that you couldn't do previously with Blackboard. Because ClassTag is app-based, it allows you as the user to select, I don't want to get emails, or I don't want to get text messages and emails. I only want to get texts, or I only want to get emails. We're going to be putting together more documentation. We've released it previously, but release it again to families so that they can go in the app and see how they change that, so that they're really getting it the way they want to get it. And they're getting it. Choice is always what we want. We want you to be able to get your information however you want. One of the things when we had the early release day was the phone number. This comes out of New York. We're working on trying to get it to be a local phone number. Unfortunately, with the vendor that we have, that's the number that it is. ClassTag is always asking me, because I'm very pushy on what I want. They're always like, well, what can we do? Or I'll go to them and be like, you need to do this. The embed code was one of them. So the embed code to get the newsletters and emails. I was like, listen, my last vendor had this. Why don't you? They're like, well, it's on the roadmap. Well, the roadmap isn't good enough. I want it now. And they're hoping for Q2 to have that out. So we're trying to push them to get what we want. And they're very receptive to getting us what we're looking for. Making sure information is correct, like Superintendent Lyons said. Reach out to myself, reach out to Katie Goodine, reach out to your building secretaries, your building administrative assistants, to really make sure that the information that's in Aspen is what your accurate information is. Sometimes when you register, you put in a 2 instead of a 1, or back in the olden days when we used to do the handwritten registrations, your L looked like a 1 or your 1 looked like an L. If you're not receiving weekly communications, from your principals, that should be your first alert. So if tomorrow afternoon you don't get a message from the MEC, the HPB, MKG, and Nichols, that's a problem. And if by Sunday at 5:30 you haven't gotten an email from Mr. Brannigan, that's a problem. So we want to make sure that if that happens, reach out to the principal, reach out to me, reach out to Mrs. Goodine, reach out to your administrative assistants in the offices, and we'll get that figured out, whether it's a problem in Aspen or it might be a problem in ClassTag that we have to flip a switch and change something, or it could also be in your user preferences that you've turned that off. Maybe 3 years ago, you didn't think ClassTag was going to be as important as it is. Well, now it is, and you want to get that information. So being able to go in there and change that. But any questions?
The robocall number changed. If you could make sure that's one of the things get blasted out, because I know a bunch of people after the emergency closing programmed the number into their phones, as did I, so that they knew to answer it, because it is now in their contacts. So if you change it, just let people know.
Yep, will do.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Tanya, and I just had a follow-up question about the communications. I guess I would like to know, there's a few things on the police log, and I understand that you cannot say specific information for the child's sake or anybody involved, but there are some concerning calls to the Nichols School that were not communicated in an email. It does not have to be detailed. It just needs to say, an incident happened today, it's being investigated, like kids talk, parents talk. I mean, a police log is a public legal form of, communication. So, I mean, we can sit here and say that we're doing what we need to do to communicate with parents, and I appreciate that. But at the same time, we do have some other things that have been going on at the Nichols School that is on the police log that I find pretty serious and has not been communicated. And when asked about it, I didn't get a response back right away through the principal of the school. And then to get a response that I think was completely way off track about the calls on the police log does not give me confidence within our district. And I am very involved in this district. I have 2 children, and I have always, pride on doing better, being better, helping the community be better. And I just am losing the trust for the safety of my children in Middleborough, because I feel, and many others, I'm not the only parent, that the things on these police logs are concerning, and that nothing was sent down in an email, a brief statement, not releasing any, detailed information or names. But I think that would give us more confidence within our administrative staff. That's all I have to say.
Thank
To further that point, there are some things on the police log that are concerning. So I'm trying to figure out where that communication fits in from the district communication. Like there are calls during school hours weapons reports, sex offenses, photographing unsuspecting nude person, all within the middle school. So I don't understand why there isn't a communication sent stating police were called, and they all say they were investigated by the police. So I don't understand why it's not going home saying there was an incident, it's being investigated by the police, and that's it. The safety of the children are fine, and there's no harm to the community.
I think you've both been answered about this particular issue. So, it seems like you're dissatisfied with the answer I'm giving you, but that's not going to change my answer. You're assuming that the police are investigating something that happened at school. And as I've just explained to you, if something has happened, you would have been notified. So there is no missing link. If you want more information, you should contact the Middleborough Police Department. That would be the next logical step.
I think the piece that people need to understand too is we have a lot of kids who are involved in court and a lot of kids who are involved in other ways. So for example, in school systems I've been involved with and kids I've been involved with, I've seen kids get arrested in school. I've seen kids get various court orders, from restraining orders to court orders in school, that police are logging and going out, that the schools have no part of, if you will. It starts with the court system or starts with whatever's going on in their outside life, and I think that's part of it too.
And I understand that, and I'm not saying that we're privy to any confidential information, and I don't think that's what any parent in the community is saying. I think what is alarming for parents is that they see the public record, the legal public record from the PD, showing that there is some sort of incident that seemed to occur during school hours, and I don't understand why it places distrust in the district from I've talked to many parents in the district, and a lot of them don't feel safe, don't feel comfortable with the information that's not coming from the administration.
Bridget, you have a question?
So yeah, so I'm hearing it differently as well. So I'm hearing that this is a 911 call. This is a 911 log that they're looking at, right? This is what they're seeing, a 911 log.
No, ma'am. So that's the piece too, right?
So then that's where parents are confused, because
And I
if they're
understand. If you
seeing a
look at the lo- if you
police
look at the
log,
police log,
what parents see is a 911 log. So what parents perceive is a 911 is an emergency. An emergency happened at the school. The police were called to investigate. This wasn't a scenario you described in which you're saying kids are being, police are coming at a non-emergency time due to a court order, due to this, due to that. What parents are seeing is a 911 call. That indicates an emergency to them. Emergency fits into the policy that you were suggesting we get a communication for. So if there's a disconnect from what you're saying and what we're perceiving, and a parent emails you because they want to understand, this is alarming to me as a parent. If this is happening, you are 911 initiating a call because of weapons, because of a sex offense, because there's other ways that you communicate with the school resource officer. There's actual regular Middleborough school lines that you can call the school resource officer. So they're non-emergency police lines. But when people see a 911 police log, they want to understand better that's an emergency to them. And so that emergency seems to fit into your policy where it should be communicated. And if a parent reaches out for clarification but gets non-answers, it seems like an illusion of communication. There's not an answer that validates their concern and explains, no, I'm sorry, it is a police log, it's not a 911 call. Is it a 911 call or is it not a 911 call? That's what these parents are looking at, or what we're seeing. Is it a 911 call?
there have been 911 calls. Sean, talk about the 911 calls for a little bit.
So I'm not going to say I'm a police officer because I'm not, but the way that this works is if an officer in our building is working on something police related, that gets called into dispatch. Dispatch then triggers a ticket, right, or a log that they're investigating something. So it's not necessarily that there was a lights and siren to the building. It just means that something inside I want to relate it to IT because that's what I do, but they create logs to create history of what happened for them. So whether it's for the SRO, whether it's a log in the investigation, they're creating something. They're creating a log, which is what you're seeing, meaning that they're doing something. They're doing police work.
Was that answer ever provided to the parent that it wasn't a 911 emergency call, that these are communications, these are logs? Where was that communicated to the parent that it wasn't an emergency 911 call that was called, but these police logs are not simply 911 emergency calls? Because when parents do look at public records and it's a 911 emergency call log, that's what they perceive. They perceive there was an emergency. It could have been communicated. Why isn't communicated? And then it does lead to mistrust or distrust because it seems like you just want to sweep it under the rug and say, nothing happened. There's nothing to see here. But there are things. We do recognize that kids aren't perfect. We do recognize that kids make mistakes. We do recognize that there are times that the school needs to engage the officers because it's actually a safety concern for all of our children. And we want to make sure my child's safe, her child's safe, that child's safe. So we should be reassured that these calls are really keeping all of our children safe. But the communication that I happened to be privy to read it, the communication was provided didn't reassure anybody that these investigations happen as a practice because we need to do this, and it's to keep everybody safe. And never clarified what you just said, that this is a log that's generated, whether it's an emergency or non-emergency, whether it's generated from a 911 call or from a non-emergency line. I didn't understand that from the communications. That wasn't clear to me. That was much clearer to me. But I also think that parents need to have that general understanding that you do involve the police for safety reasons and to make sure all of your children are safe. And we know that kids make mistakes. And we know that they need support from the police, from the community, from other parents. We know that. But we need to understand and we need to be able to gauge what risks are going on. And when we don't get clear communication, when we actually ask for clarification, but we get misdirected to the please see my communication policy, that's not helpful.
Other questions? Jess?
Statement of, obviously the school isn't responsible for building or maintaining the police log. So if there are any specifics that could be provided by the police department that relate to how that police log is created, do we know who the proper person in the police department to contact would be to get that information?
Yeah, I had a conversation with Chief Perkins about this last week and again this week. And he's made it very clear that any parent that has any question whatsoever about information contained in a police log, they should call him directly.
Call Chief Perkins and he will clarify. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you.
And that completes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I hear a second? Second. Discussion? The thing I do want to point out to everybody, and I think this is important, is Mass Tank Sales Corp. And Mass Tank Inspection Services, which are the same company.
Yes.
Have, since COVID began, sort of foregone their holiday party and given a donation to the Family Resource Center. And so this is the fourth year.
Yeah, I actually brought the,
Sure,
if you don't mind, I
please.
brought the specifics. So Mass Tank is located on Abbey Lane here in Middleborough. They're a local business. And absolutely, they have forfeited their company holiday party for the purpose of donating to the Family Resource Center. They started this practice in December of 2020. And then in December 21, 22, and 23, they gave $500 each year to the Family Resource Center. And then this December, they have sort of two companies because it's Mass Tank Sales and Mass Tank Inspection. They doubled it. So inspection through 500 and the tank sales through 500 for a total donation of $1,000. And we invited them here to come this evening. Not every company wants to come and be here in person, but I think it's important that we thank them and know that this is a local community partner. And that's a very generous gesture on their part that they've done now for several years.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the high school program of studies. Do I hear a second? Discussion. Again, thank you, Paul, and thank you for your staff. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We'll see you again January 18th. Thank you very much, everybody.